How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I'm going to speak with Tyler Hill. Recently, he made a video talking about how much Solana you need, and we had him on the channel before. Everyone absolutely loved him and loved the video talking about how high he thought Solana could go. So we're going to have him back on the channel. If you don't mind, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell notification underneath the video to see future videos just like this. I'm going to have more guests on during the bull market. I'll also leave a link to Tyler's YouTube channel underneath the video, so go subscribe to him, give him some love. There's also a link down there to Margex in case you want to trade cryptocurrency on leverage. You can try it out. You don't need to KYC, which means you don't need to put in a lot of personal information. You can set it up in just a few seconds. If you're not welcome on other exchanges, you're welcome here. Definitely check that out underneath the video. And there's a link down there to HG Algo too, where you can get bullish momentum and bearish momentum signals that can be really helpful for this kind of market. It can help you trade. And then also you can turn on the DCA feature, which tells you when a good time to dollar cost average into the market might be. This has been awesome so far. It's actually been super helpful. So definitely check this out underneath the video as well. How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today we have Tyler Hill on the channel with us. Tyler, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the channel again, man. I know I was here not too long ago, so happy to be back and kind of get some updates going.
Yeah, definitely. And I had to have you on because last time we had you on, you gave your Solana price targets or predictions, and people loved that video. Like, it continues to get views today. People are, I think, going over to your channel for that. So I wanted to do an update video because recently I saw that you had a video talking about how people need to get to 15 Solana. Can you explain why people need to get to 15 Solana or why that's the magic number?
Yeah. So this is gonna take a second. I'm gonna kind of give you my little thesis here, but so it kind of stems from the whole idea of kind of what everyone's perception of a goal is at the end of the day, right? I don't want to say that 15 is a magic number for necessarily everyone, but I do believe it's the magic number for the vast majority. Now, the way that I kind of concluded that was I kind of just made some polls, on Twitter, on YouTube, Patreon, Discord, things like that, and just said like, hey, if in a best case scenario, based off your financial situation, where you are right now, if you had a crypto that you were holding, that you're a fan of, what would be the number where you would feel some sort of satisfaction? Like, where would you generally be happy at, right? That was just kind of the idea. It was more of a thought experiment more than anything. And overwhelmingly, the number was about $10,000. They're like, if we can have a 5-figure holding in my favorite crypto, like, I would feel happy. And to some people that may be, out of reach, right? Realistically. And some people that might be nothing, but for the majority of people, that was just, the number that they were the most excited about, that they would feel satisfied at. Now, I think you and I both know generally when you hit those types of goals, the next goal becomes past that. So is that going to be the one that everyone will forever be satisfied at? No, but it's at least a start for the thought experiment. So the reason we got to 15 was basically just saying, okay, well, if my goal is to see a Solana, position that's worth, say, $10,000, right? What, based off of my price prediction of where I think Solana conservatively can go throughout this next run, what amount of Solana would it take? And that number ended up coming out to roughly about 15 because my personal conservative price prediction is around $600 to $675. Now, the question then becomes obviously, well, okay, so we know what we want to see. We want to know the amount, of course, but how do we get to $675? And so that's kind of what the video was about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually share my screens really quickly and kind of go through my entire thesis of how I got to that number. Now, it really started off more from a fundamental based perspective. And let me double check. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Cool.
You're good.
So it came down from a fundamental perspective. I'm not one of those people that genuinely believes that you can base your thesis of where a crypto's price can go purely off of technical analysis, right? Especially in a world like crypto that is so volatile, that is rather small in grand scheme of things. You can't base it purely off of TA because too many environmental factors can cause things that you weren't expecting, right? You think back to an FTX-like situation back in November, it felt, or 2022, it felt as if, right? Or realistically, if you look at any of these mass movements that have happened within crypto, the overall energy around the market felt different than what happened, right? So I remember when FTX happened, the crash happened, et cetera, we all kind of felt like the market was somewhat bottoming out to some degree, but then FTX just kind of pulls a rug and the fall continues, right? And if I was purely basing my theories or my thesis purely off of just technical analysis, I wouldn't have seen any of that coming. So because of that, what I've always said is when I base my thesis or I don't even know the plural for thesis, but whenever I make a thesis and base kind of what I think is going to happen off of that, I include fundamental and technical perspectives. So the first one being a fundamental perspective, and I think the easiest thing you can do is just look at something like the total value locked. It's just kind of a representation of what is actually happening on chain. Okay, obviously we've seen development on chain. Obviously we have seen the overall growth of the ecosystem, meme coins doing well, etc. But this is a good representation of the trust in the ecosystem, which in general is what allows prices to climb over the long term, because selling pressure is rather diminished when people trust an ecosystem. And looking at something like Solana's TVL, currently we actually saw a milestone that we hit, in which Solana hit $2 billion TVL, meaning that there was $2 billion worth of crypto that is now staked or locked amongst the Solana ecosystem. And considering the fact that our the previous all-time high for TVL was right around $10 billion back in 2021, it tells me that even through all the craziness, in which realistically considering Solana is almost half, or about 40% recovered from its all-time high already, it's only about 20% recovered in TVL. And what that tells me is that by the time we see this ecosystem really thriving like it once was, I genuinely believe Solana's price is going to be significantly higher than it was at the time in which it was at peak thriving point, if that makes sense.
Let's say someone's starting with 1 Solana or 2 Solana right now. Like, let's say they have a couple $1,000s sitting around. Should they just buy all at once, or should they dollar cost average? Should they trade their way up there to try to get more Solana? What's the best option?
Yeah, so I think it'd be best that I start with what not to do. And this is all my opinion. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, all that good stuff, right? But at the end of the day, I definitely don't think that this is the market to be trying to trade your way up to 15 Solana, right? I don't think that it's buy Solana low, sell Solana high, to buy it low again, to sell it high, to buy it low, to sell it high, and to accumulate over time. And the reason I say that is because the likelihood of you prematurely selling in a bull market is very high. It's very high. For example, if you would have sold Solana when it hit $80 because it was fully extended on a 4x off of $20, yeah, you might have done well. But in my opinion, I think trying to trade the way up is probably not the best idea. So that kind of leaves the two options. Option number one is DCAing. Option number two is just lump sum, just buy 15 now and just wait. Personally speaking, I think it's all situational, but I do believe that the general best practice here would be to just dollar cost average your way up. Now, that's something that I've preached over and over and over again over on my channel. And on top of that, you already know, it's something that you and I have both talked about at this point. I think you have to realize that with all of the institutional investment, with all of these big whales coming in, I'm a tinfoil hat guy myself, right? And with all of these people coming in, I think that the strings that they're going to be pulling are going to be much more extreme. I think as we see something like Bitcoin supply kind of get shocked, I think as we start to see the demand substantially overwhelming the supply, that a lot of these whales and a lot of these quote unquote market movers or manipulators, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to get into a position in which they want to hoard as much crypto as they possibly can. They want to take it from as many people as possible because they see what's happening, right? And so because of that, I think volatility is going to strike in the sense that there's going to be huge movements up and huge movements down rather fast. I think volatility is going to be higher than we've ever seen it before. I think liquidations are going to be higher than we've ever seen it before, because the likelihood is that leverage is going to enter in the market again. And that's a perfect formula for them to, of course, move these prices to liquidate people. And so in my opinion, because of the volatility that I'm expecting to come, I think, again, trading is not a good idea, especially if you can get liquidated. And in a grand scheme of things, you want a 3x, 4x, 5x leverage trade, do as you please, right? I think that's great if you have a strategy. But those 100x trades and things like that, I just think it's a ridiculous risk to take in a macro environment in which the likelihood is cryptos are going to go up, right? And so with that in mind, as I mentioned before, because of that volatility, that's going to come with emotions. Emotions drive stupid decisions, and stupid decisions cost you money, right? And so for me, dollar cost averaging is easily the way that you avoid that. And since it's such a sure shot, in my opinion, that we see this market continue upwards, just slowly entering in is the best approach, in my opinion. So
yeah,